What up, folks? It's the Midlife Crisis Show. We had a shit show of a time trying to get this to work today, but it is back. It's up and running, and we're excited. We got our man SGAR here from Expedition Labs, and we are going to have a fantastic conversation. But before that, Maddie, how are you doing? I know we got a lot of things shaking in the background with
Oh
midlife. We're
man,
talking
there's
real
so much
estate.
stuff.
We're talking
Yeah,
content. What's going on, brother?
there are a lot of irons in the fire right now. No
Yeah.
question. The the battle now is going to be optimization. You know what I mean? What makes the most sense to do first, but it's a good thing to have. And it's really cool because you start this and it's like us playing video games to a bunch of bots on Twitch.
Yep.
And all of a sudden now it's like, oh wait, we got a lot more opportunity than we have time. And that's a good thing to see occur, man. But yeah, life's good. It's tough to be upset in Florida, man. I mean, beautiful day, got up early, went for a run, and just like, you're getting people's sprinklers are turning on. It seemed like it was out of like one of those movies that's not real, you know what I mean?
Right,
And a
right.
little too perfect, little too perfect.
Just
So
got the picture this morning. I feel the same in San
it
Diego,
was
although it's
amazing.
been rainy and cold as shit. But dude, I'm so happy you're in a beautiful place. Dude, how much of an impact does that have on your psyche when you can wake up, see the sun,
It's
and know that you're
huge.
close to water?
It's huge, man. It's amazing. And I mean, it's if it's what you enjoy and you're around people that are good, and there's so much to do here too. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, it's Florida, and
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Tampa's an awesome area, that's for sure. And good scene. You already know there's not that I'm into the craft beers like you are, but there's craft beers here. But that means
Insane
there's
craft
food
beer.
here.
Insane
Lots of good
craft
food
beer.
here.
Yeah,
So yeah,
absolutely.
man.
Well, I'm doing good too, man. I'm pumped up. We got a lot going on. Really serious chances to start monetizing some things that we're doing because we've been doing this for a long time, not making much money at all. So it'd be nice to make some
Yep,
money eventually.
exactly.
But I'll let you take it away, man. Introduce our highly esteemed
Yeah.
guest, Scar, and we're going to
So
have a blast.
So yeah, like you said, Scar, we already know is the co-founder of Expedition Labs. That's the part that is obvious, right? But if you're looking in his background, and I know that Mike's cropped some of it around there, but very right off the bat, musician, and he's got that vibe. And if you were to guess the genre, I think you would guess correct. But let me just go down through this. No joke, this isn't one of those I'm just going to start in a garage and like figure it out. Actually went to school for music and tech. He has a music and tech degree. So he actually knows what he's doing, and that's what led to him being a chart-topping music artist, songwriter, and producer. That producer part, you actually have to know what you're doing in case you were wondering, and that's where that schooling came in. He is a guitarist in a progressive metal band called 100,000.
Nailed it.
I love it, man. I love it. And like I said, if I were to guess a genre, I would have said metal. You definitely have that vibe going on. I mean, you don't strike me as like an 80s hair band cover kind of guitarist. So, I mean, I'm sure you've had your moments, but yeah, man, progressive metal, man, that is so awesome. And then the cool thing I think is on top of all that, he's trapped inside all day. You think, nope, he's a pro paddleball player. This dude gets out there, hits the courts, makes it happen, and is obviously hitting it on all the levels. You got to have that mind, body, and soul, and so it sounds like you got it going on, man. But yeah, man, I'm really excited. This is going to be a great conversation. How you doing?
Freaking great, man. I'm in Jersey, so this is like the first week we've had that I guess good weather, and I've been envious of Florida this whole season, so screw you, but hell yeah. It feels
Yeah,
good.
right. Well,
Good
don't
weather.
worry. Soon I'll be melting. I'll just be melting in the chair, and you'll at least be, comfortable. So there's always trade-offs, but it'll be good. So yeah,
Yeah.
man, it's gonna be good.
Well, that was a fantastic intro, Scar. Again, excited you're here. I've known Snack for a while. We go back Hape days, I think. And then, kept on talking through Llama. We've had Helly on the show a couple times, and now it's your time to shine, baby. So, the world famous midlife crisis question: how did you get to the seat you're sitting in today? Please give us Star Wars episode 1, 2, and 3. 1 being your childhood, 2 being your professional career, 3 being how you found Web3 and what you're doing now, brother.
For sure. I love that, by the way. Not many people would do it that way. And I'm just a new Star Wars fan, believe it or not. So you're lucky that you got me to know those 1, 2, 3
Ooh,
things.
welcome to the dark side,
And
my
what we're
friend.
going for is the origin story. Matt does a way better job explaining than I do. But I'm glad you appreciate our format, because I do think it's unique as well.
Oh yeah, cool, man. Well, I guess it all starts for me being a little suburban kid in Essex County, New Jersey. I grew up in a small town with a regional high school, regional elementary school sort of thing, and always played sports my whole life. I had my dad is a big music guy and appreciator, not a musician himself. Talk about 80s hair metal. That's what I grew up with, actually, Maddie. So as a kid, I was always in the car with him, blasting, the early 80s sort of stuff, and even early 80s, 70s metal. And that's what got me into to understand music at a very young age, and arguably way over mature in a musical sense than growing up. So I can never relate with anybody except for the few other cool kids that had stupid parents like myself that did that in
Right.
the most amazing way. So yeah, so that was growing up with great music choices, and just having a great little core friend group that we would drive around the train tracks, getting bikes, doing all a bunch of delinquent stuff, and eating all the weird food that we can, and "Hey, Mom, can I have $20 for this?" Oh, whoa, like, "Oh, fine, let's do this." But yeah, so I grew up in a very normal sort of town, very cool part of New Jersey. There's a lot more than just a turnpike, and a lot more than what the Jersey Shore makes it out to be. So,
And it doesn't
so yeah,
always smell like people
right.
used to tell me, right?
Oh
For some
yeah,
odd
yeah,
reason, they said Jersey was a smelly state.
yeah. They're wrong. 30 minutes from the beach, 30 minutes from New York, 30 minutes from any hike you want to go to. It's incredible. And then 30 minutes from Pennsylvania, even though they have horrible cheesesteaks. So screw you, Philly.
Man, those are some harsh words there, brother.
Oh man. Oh, feel very strong about my food. So I got really
Oh, I
yeah, we could
can't
talk.
wait to talk about that. We love our food too, my friend. I love cooking, man. Love it.
Oh yeah. So that's a little episode one. Nothing crazy. Always played sports, soccer, baseball, basketball. Very simple life growing up. Nothing, no crazy, nothing crazy, nothing, no trauma that American Idol, when I was on that show, they tried to stir from me. I'm just like, I'm that guy that's like, well, I don't really have any horror story to tell you. I'm just a dude that had it pretty good and never have any complaints except some divorced parents or anything, but just a
Oh,
regular kid.
dude. Come
I
on, man.
mean,
You just literally
whoa.
dropped
Okay.
No, no, no,
I
No,
no, no,
no.
no, 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 no.
Listen.
No,
All
no,
right.
no, no, no,
That's
no.
like saying, all right, Anakin Skywalker, have a
right.
high metachlorian count,
Oh,
did some pod racing. Anyway, now I'm a Jedi.
no,
You
it's
can't just say
not.
that and say that's
No,
episode one.
that's really not an episode anything. It's just a thing. That's the thing. It's just a
Well,
So
we'll see
here's
about that.
what we're gonna do. This is what Maddie and I are very good at. This is what we've created a podcast around. So you gave us a very vanilla episode one. We're just gonna grade you straight up. It wasn't a great episode one because there wasn't detail, but what we are good at is you still at least dropped a couple nuggets, and we're gonna start here. You talk about your dad and the influence that he had on you, music being a big one. Can you talk about um, growing up in a household with music? How do you think that molded your mindset, the way that you grew up, and the impact that it had on you? Because not a lot of people grow up with a musically filled household, kind of like you did.
For sure. And I guess in a sense, I grew up. My parents got divorced right pretty early on, so like around 4 or 5 years old. So my main house, living with my mom, never wasn't really a big music household, though appreciative of it. But my dad, whenever I would see him once a week, he would come and pick me up, and we would drive to New York where he was living, and then it was through that time where I really the seeing my dad not as much as like once a week, not see him every day. It at a young age, it made it seem like, which was true, that I had to savor every moment that I could. So it seemed like everything we did was was so purposeful, and every ounce of music that was there, every ounce of sports um, being taught to me, that was definitely what shaped my mindset of trying to do a lot of things at the same time, trying to live in the moment, trying to and just really understand what I want to do and go chase those sort of things. And I understood at a pretty young age that I wanted to do something myself. And without knowing like what that meant, it just always seemed like I gravitated towards things that I was in control of and didn't want to, work for others or I just wanted to pave my own way. So everything that in terms of rituals, we would watch shows, we would everything was a metaphor for how our life was as father and son, and instilling values and interest in me at a young age to be able to for me to want to do a professional career of music, of sports, or whatever it may be.
Dude, that was beautiful. And you said a lot of amazing things there too,
Yeah.
as well. One of the last, so two things that you said, instilling values. What are those values? What do you think because you had your mom's side too. So just looking at your dad and your mom, what do you think they kind of those lessons or values they instilled in you that you maybe still use today?
For sure. Education was always something huge in my mom's household. So um, both are incredible rock star parents in their own way. My dad was more of the um, be unique and unapologetic towards everything you want to do in general. My mom is a little bit more of the conservative side, where try this out and maybe here's the pathway for you to go, but still figure it out on your own. And based around core family values and rituals and treating people right. And I'm Italian, so I'm not sure if anybody agrees, relates in that sense. But if you do, if you are, you understand the Italian household. So the um, the rituals and Sunday gravy and all that stuff. So but yeah, I guess with my dad, like I said, it was more so understanding that every um, I mean, he was one who first in like fourth grade is like, let's get your hair going a little long. So it's like, just forget about what all the kids would think. It's going to be cool at one point, and somehow I guess it turned out pretty cool. And it's like dress whatever you want, put these boots on, put this shit on, just like it make you feel good, define your own persona, and so all of these things and and just doing, I guess, father and son things, like one just little stuff that may seem to not matter, like filming a show once a week so we have something to look forward to every week, and then how that one show shapes you for the rest of your life. Like Supernatural is one show in particular. You have the father and son going through life, and and it's so crazy how there's some things at a young age that
Hmm.
stick with you throughout your whole career. So yeah, you know what I
Dude,
mean?
dude, you're saying so many beautiful things here. See, you have a very interesting episode one.
I
One
know.
more thing, and then I'll let Maddie go. But
Sure.
one of the thoughts that kind of sparked right there is your dad is kind of like pushing you to just try new things, even though you might not have liked it at the time you made the comment about the long hair. Do you think
Right.
that helped kind of mold? Because then you also mentioned kind of an entrepreneurship spirit. Is that part of where it came from? Anything else that influenced that kind of mindset?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I guess, and he didn't really directly. The purpose wasn't for to. I mean, to have an entrepreneurial mindset. It was more so just be different and people to take notice and to be remembered for something. Like he's like his thing is I'd rather be hated and people know who I am than to do always than to be a phony. I guess come across as nice and be forgotten. So
Oh, that's really interesting. I like
so I
that thought.
So I guess I have a little bit of the New York Bronx kid that my dad is with the suburban respectful woman that my mom is, and that comes to it comes that I guess that side comes out sometimes, but yeah, that's the good melting pot of both of them in that sense.
No, I love it, man. That's some insight that I wouldn't even have thought of. So thanks for sharing that. Maddie, what do you got, man?
Yeah, man. So taught to be that it was okay to be different, to be your own self. However, at a young age, being different can be tough sometimes. So let me ask you this: any struggles, anything when you look back and you're like, "Ooh, yes, it was good now, but maybe in the time wasn't so fun." What were some of the challenges that you faced back then?
Or I think like same challenges everybody always face. And I was always that dude in high school. Let's just say that was the floater between friend groups.
Mhm.
I was liked by the cool kids, but not cool enough to be part of the group. I was liked by the nerds, but not nerdy enough to be a part of the nerd group. I was athletic enough and to be the captain of this team, but not cool enough to be with the jock. It's just like one of those that just I had my core group of the freaking delinquent town kids, and we were just going back and forth trying to figure out what we're doing. So I never really, I guess, I just floated between both of those. I mean, every possible thing, and never really had a hard. I just never really fit in perfectly to one category. But the moment I started doing music later on in my high school career, towards junior year high school, I mean senior
Yeah.
year, that's when all of a sudden everybody's like, "Oh, look at you! Oh my god!" And like at that point, I'm like, "Well, screw you! You never, you never cared about me before." And in the girl situation, or like finding like a cool girlfriend or anything like that,
Yeah.
I always had a like one relationship. I was never like I was never that player or anything like that. I just you found one cool girl, and then that I would stay with through wound up being like the girl through high school, and then one girl through college, and then it was never like a bounce back and forth sort of thing. So it was never like, oh, gross, you're so cool, fucking Scar, look at you. It was always dancing back and forth between stuff. You know.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, that makes sense, man, for sure. And it is interesting because having that background, I would say a lot of kids, I mean, certainly you recognize that having a father figure saying things like it's okay to be who you are unapologetically, right?
Mhm.
I think a lot of parents think that's what they're imparting on their kids, but few do. At the end of the day, parents want their kids to thrive and not get picked on and whatnot. And so there's a level of conformity that they kind of pressure. So to go
Mhm.
against that, knew there was going to be some bumps, but obviously it's paid dividends as you get older because I mean that's the name of the game, right? Especially in something as competitive as music. Like you have to stand out, you
Right.
have to be different from the crowd. Let me ask you this. Any of the music you listened to back then, were any of them factors in terms of like influences or whatnot? I know for me, music was listening to different types of music impacted like my thought process. What was that for you? Was there a certain band you connected with? Was there something that changed it? And you're like, oh yeah, now I'm going to be in a metal band. How did that
Sure.
work?
Yeah, so I mean, growing up and liking that different stuff of classic rock or hair metal or metal, whatever it was, you find your core group of people. So I never, as much as I was just saying before, I never really fit into this particular like the cool blah blah blah. You always had like the core group of people that understood you, and you didn't have to really, like you didn't have to flaunt your shit. Just like you like this music, so cool, we're cool automatically. So music always transcended any conversation, any trying to fit in with anything for me. It's part like specifically like I guess the metal sort of stuff with like, oh, there's that
Yeah.
one person that likes Metallica or that one person that likes Sabbath or the weird fucking exquisite 80s sort of hidden metal that my dad loved, and like all that stuff. And so I guess music literally defined my who I am in that sense, and set up my career for starting in a metalcore band in high school, and playing all across the freaking tri-state area, and opening for as big bands as Sevendust, Asking Alexandria, any of these people like back then, and playing for the thousands, and then that getting in front of that made me transition to a glam rock band, a female fronted band that we could talk about in stage two, which is in phase two, which is definitely the start of the professional career. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
music definitely
dude.
played that role.
That is
You
amazing.
said
Yeah, I love
Seven
that.
Dust and you caught my attention because I listen to a lot of Seven Dust. Deftones are my favorite band of all time. I've seen them
Oh
over
hell yeah,
20, I think 21 times I've seen them in concert.
you're a
Um,
trooper.
yeah, just all over. I love them to death, but that's really cool. When did
Me
the
too.
American Idol situation happen? Was that younger or professional career?
That's between 2 and 3, I'd say
Okay.
between
Okay.
that's like you
Got
get
it.
there too. Maybe I'll
Right.
just start going on this freaking run, to play this story because it
Well,
definitely plays into that, but you tell me.
yeah.
So
One
real
more
quick,
question though,
one
just
more
just real
question.
quick.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
go.
Gotta
yeah.
say this. They say that people are like their pets. And the second you were describing that, I knew you were a cat person. And then I saw that cat in there. I was like, he's a cat guy.
Great.
because the whole "be your own self," man, gives
It was
zero
great.
Fs. What anybody thinks about you, I was like, Psh, cat person.
Oh yeah.
I
I
love
do.
it.
I do. Recently, I do have a dog though, and she's incredible. But
That's
grew up
awesome.
with cats. But
Look at you still being in the middle of all the packs. You're cool with everybody. That's what it is.
Making it happen,
It's
dog.
good. You got to be that way though as an entrepreneur. You got to be able to you have to be able to touch each social group and be able to
Mhm.
interact. And I
Yeah.
will say music is a fantastic bridge for that. So that's really
Yeah.
damn
cool.
straight, man. Damn
We
straight.
we had Violetta on. Have you heard of her? She's
Yes.
Web3 musician. We had a fascinating conversation with her, and obviously music influenced her entire life as well. It was really interesting. It's similar vibes. So let's do that. And unless you have anything else, Maddie, we can kind of transition
No,
to that
let's do
high
it.
school starting a tour with Sevendust. So take us through those early kind of. We've got a good foundation of why you are the way you are. Now take us through you starting to experiment learning music.
Sure. Okay. So how I got into music first of all was actually we'll start there from my dad. He bought a guitar and took a couple less courses and was like, "Here, let me try to teach you some shit." And wound up he's could barely play, but I was inspiring enough for me to be able to learn some AC/DC songs, some Kiss songs and whatnot, and Rush and little things that made me understand that I love music, right? So that's what, and this was around 8 years old, 9 years old, and then this gradually turned into me being in that metalcore band where I'm in high school with my two best friends in a small town. We were this three-piece like trio metal band that and it just had no business being a three-piece, but somehow we pulled it off, and people really liked that. And I guess that's how we got on some cool shows, and we're that local kind of band. And at some point, I had an internship at this ridiculous, awesome studio in the middle of nowhere, New Jersey, called Architect Music. Architect with a K, Architekt, in case anybody's interested. Um, and there, so weird how this story happens, but the reason why I got that internship is because my dad brought me to some show, random show in Nyack, New York, that his friend from work's husband was playing in that night, the opening band for them wound up being this band called Westgate. I've never been impressed by a local band ever, and that was the first time in my life. I was 15 or so. I was like, holy shit, these guys just rocked my fucking world. And I've never been like, I want to know who you are. I was like, who are you? So I went to them in the audience. I'm like, hi, can I get your CD or whatever, however you would say, and like, sure. So they got me the CD. I kept up with them on I think Facebook was where it happened back then, and I got to and my dad also got in contact with them because he figured it might be a good opportunity for me somehow. So we followed them to another show because the same band that my dad's friend at work's husband was in, who I mean at the time wasn't too impressive to me at all, but they were playing another show with this band Westgate, so we went to see them again. At that point, I had a good conversation with one of the members from the band, and like we're opening up the studio, come by for opening night, which was about 10 or 12 years ago at this time, and went there for opening night. Same bands were playing. And then at that day, I had a CD of my own in my hand, and I gave it to the drummer of the band the guitarist of the band that I love, and he happened to be one of the owners of the studio as well. So I gave him the thing. He's like, "Wow, like, can you intern here?" They wound up loving it. I'm like, "Sure." So that's what got me my introduction to the studio world on a professional level. I started interning, started to understand how the studio worked, what it's like to make a record behind the board, get to know bands, the etiquette of how to be silent in the room and how to treat the band and get their coffee and mop the freaking floors. So and that was that one part. Once I understood that, I met this girl that happened to walk in, and she wound up being an intern as well. We hit it off pretty quick, and then one day, never saw her for another couple months. Gave exchanged phone numbers. All of a sudden, I get a call a couple of months later. It's like, "Hey, Greg, remember me?" I was like, "Yeah." Turns out I have the band that I'm talking about, and we need a bass player to play this New Year's Eve show with Hailstorm. And I'm like, okay, cool. It was in Pennsylvania. And I'm like, I don't know if I could do it because I'm in this band right now, but I'm so stupid. So I wound up doing it. And long story short, with that particular situation, I joined the band. It was an incredible show. and it was this 80s metal glam rock thing, female fronted, a band called Syka, Syka. And I was just about to enter college at that time. And once I entered college, I went to college at Stevens Institute of Technology in Hoboken, New Jersey. I went there because it was right next to it's one of the top engineering schools in the country, but had no business being a music guy at a program over there. Just we're so close to New York at the time, and I was going back and forth with the band Psycha. And also, it turns out that David Bowie's guitarist, Carlos Alomar, was one of the teachers at Stevens. So I figured it might be a cool opportunity to meet him and maybe get a relationship. Turns out that there aren't many rock kids or people who appreciate rock at Stevens. So him and I and one of my other friends who we went together, who I met at Architect as well, we we hit it off with Carlos, and turns out we were his brain trust, and the people that he would talk to about all of his Bowie stories, his Mick Jagger stories, his James Brown stories. And when Bowie died, he went to us first and said, "I don't want to talk to anybody except you about everything. Rolling Stone keeps hitting me up, and I don't want to talk to anybody, just you." So this is the type of relationship that we had, and showed me what it's like to have to be what it's like to be on the road, to not take any shit from people, and have a relationship, because at the time the girl that I was in the band with, Psycho, was my girlfriend. And so so all of that in one. All of a sudden we get a in the middle of college we get a record deal at Manhattan Center Music, which is one of the biggest venues in Manhattan. It's called Hammerstein Ballroom. So they wound up giving us a publishing deal and record deal after playing together for 2 or 3 years at this point, going playing every show possible in New York and the tri-state area, going across the country, LA back, and we finally got this deal, and I was going back and forth at the time from college, right across the water from the Hudson in Hoboken to Manhattan every day. I knew I was like 8 p.m. every day. I would look at across the water and be like, "Fuck, I got to get to this studio right now." And I would thank God I had good two friends over there that would always take the notes and say, "I got a boogie." So and then they would give you notes later, and I would get into the city, fulfill the deal for the day, which was recording this record and just meeting as many people as possible, and getting back at 3. I commuted to school, by the way, so I would get back anywhere between 2 a.m., 5 a.m., depending on the day. And 1 to 2 days a week, I'd have to sleep in my car because I would come back from the PATH train. I would longboard into the city, and then 2 a.m. going down Times Square, 8th Ave, when nobody is up, nobody is awake except you, and fucking longboarding down 8th Ave, and you see the garbage men picking up the garbage, getting ready for the next day, and I'm just ending mine. And I get through the PATH train to get back to Jersey, the subway, we'll call it, and the birds are chirping, and it's fucking daylight. I'm like, I gotta walk to my car and sleep for an hour just so I could function, kinda. Go upstairs to Helen, the omelet maker, and she can make me an omelet, and go right to class and sleep. And then my friends take more notes for me and figure out how to graduate with honors somehow, and do all of that, and try to be a good student in that way. And then and all of this with touring and playing, and just trying to be a good friend, student, boyfriend at the time, good community member, good son, all that stuff. And somehow it got me the craziest experiences that I've had so far, in terms of building a backbone, and understanding what it takes to grind, because I don't know more of a industry of being 17, 18, 19 years old at that time to to do that with, and to cap this part of the story, is that at some point in this story we wind up getting tight with the Lady Gaga crew, because her guitarist became joining the band for Psycha. And we got introduced to him through Konstantin Maroulis, which is a Rock of Ages and American Idol star from back then, and we wound up working together a lot, all four of us, and that's what started the journey for me to understand how not to have a girlfriend as part of the band, and and how to have some incredible stories, and get hurt, and fucking beat the fuck up from the world, and realizing how small and insignificant you are in this planet, as compared to everything else, and you don't matter, there's everybody has their own fucking story. So I got humbled pretty quick, and at the same day I graduated college, I left the band and broke up with a girlfriend, and my whole life started from zero again. So that is a little bit of phase two.
Holy shit. That
Yeah.
was amazing. Uh,
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I
We
don't
just had to
even.
warm you up, man. Now that's episode.
You
That's how we're
got
starting.
Yeah.
you got warmed up on episode 1, and you just dropped like a quarter of episode 2, and now I'm real excited.
Yeah.
Damn, man. So I guess I want to just because I still want to get to Web3, and my
Yeah.
technical difficulties delayed us a little bit. The I'm sure Matt will have similar things. The one thing that stood out to me is that's insane grind, right? You went to next level, and like you said, I think there's a couple industries that stick out in my mind, which is kind of like that bartending restaurant lifestyle where you're constantly on your feet, you're up late, you sleep during the day and do it all over again. And then the music industry, take us through that, because you said your mindset evolved a little bit. We can talk about the mindset of you ended with getting beat up insignificant, not that part, right? We'll talk about that in the next phase, but talk to me about you learning as a 17, 18-year-old, the power of grind, how you did it, and looking back, lessons that you learned.
Sure. I still have I still try to figure out if this is a bad trait or not, but I think it's subjective to everybody's own personality and their own view on shit. But I'm one of those guys that just yes, figure out the no later. Let's just pile it on. And I thrive from balance and always having something to balance. I always had the bands at full capacity, sports at the time going full capacity, and school going at full capacity, and trying to be that guy that's like, not even trying, but just wind up being that guy that people are like, how the fuck do you handle all of that? And I guess succeed in some way with them. And so I think I've learned at this point that you should still be hungry as fuck and trying to do a bunch of new shit, but you have to, that saying, working hard and working smart,
Mhm.
I think plays a little bit more into me maturing and getting older in life. Burnout happens every once in a while, but nothing a good trip down the shore or whatever can't fix for me. But I learned that it's so hard to trust people, and when you're especially that young, like when you're signing this deal with people
Mhm.
and you're working with these, I guess, caliber type of people, these young talent, and it's that story that you hear in all these movies. I got
Yeah.
a lot of money stolen from me, even with some lawyers. Even with this band, we sold a good amount of records just by ourselves, without any help from that label and whatnot. And we wound up not seeing a dime of it, and not being told that time is recoupable, all that stuff, and all this time and money that we spent into it, and nothing to get back, but just like we have a story, So I learned that you have to you got to be your own businessman in general. I was that kid that was trying to be a businessman but never really could. I'm pretty young, so you just got to learn from the mistakes, but you have to have people around you that understand, that have been through it. You need great mentors. I think to answer your question in general, Mikey, in a nutshell version, is that I've learned that you need at least one person that you could trust to be your mentor, your soundboard, whoever that may be, in the same industry, not the same industry, but someone who has been through it in their own way, that could see what you're doing, unapologetically say that you're a fucking moron, and say,
Mhm.
I love you, stop doing that, this is what I advise you do. Maybe what real advisors should do in Web3, by the way. And um and um and then just stay with them for as long as you can.
I
No, man.
love that, man. You said even more tons of nuggets there, but I'll let Maddie go.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
we could literally have a 4-hour
Yeah.
conversation
We
just
could talk
off like
about
the last
this.
10
I mean,
minutes.
Let's put 30 more minutes on this, because I could definitely make the time. I just need a second to just breathe, but fuck breathing. Let's go.
yeah, right. Well, here's the thing, man. I mean, so it's a conundrum, right? you've painted a picture that you don't hear a lot, right? If you would have said, fuck school, I'm going all in, I'm going to be a rock star. We've heard that story, right? We've also heard the, you know what, man, music can't, I need to get an education, that influence from your mom, right? I need to get an education. I'm burning the candle at both ends here, but for what, is this worth it? I need to be getting back so I can study. I need to put the music on the back burner, right? And that doesn't even account for the athletics side of it. What kept you wanting to do both at such a high level? You know what I mean? I mean, you
Yeah.
were all in, but it's kind of like you were in both. Did that feel divided? What was help me with your thought process there? Because
Right.
most people in your shoes, you're going around touring, you have access to the type of people and the caliber you're talking about. Most people ditch college, or at least say, I'll suspend the semester or something like that. How come you didn't do that? What was the difference?
I had no idea, honestly, and that's a great question, man. Like, I have no idea why I did the things I did or didn't do the things I didn't do. I just always just did. Whatever felt right, I just
Mm.
did. But and this may be another lesson too, is that, I think I still would have done the same thing, but I was in that band at the time with the female fronted singer and Psycho with my girlfriend. I was living her dream, I found out. For this particular band, I was living someone else's hopes and
Mm,
dreams. It wasn't my thing, it turns out. Even though it felt like it was mine, I did my thing in it, but it was always her thing. So I never fully I never when you look back, it never was mine. So, um, I I I I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, I think
yeah,
that's something that, um, was
that's
probably
profound.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And
you
That's
know?
real
profound.
quick on that though, that what you just said takes an extreme amount of self-awareness at some point,
Yeah.
right? So what was the light bulb moment when you were like, holy shit, like this is her thing, not mine? And talk to
Sure.
us about the mindset and the realization there.
Well, and simply put, one of those Fleetwood Mac stories where I don't know if maybe you could if you've watched Daisy Jones and the Six,
Daisy
but
Jones, baby.
I mean, that was pretty much my story as well. So if you understand what I mean, that is so I realized that I had to separate myself from her and the band because of the type of members that I spoke about before that were in the band as well.
Hmm.
And so that's probably the biggest lesson I learned for that, and the reason why I realized that it wasn't my own. I at some point it was I literally had no say as to what the creative direction was, what we were doing, even the music being created at the time, and other is very apparent to others as well, and even them in at the time, and so it came to a point where I probably stuck around too long, and that would be another piece of advisement that I'd say is to know when that pit in your stomach is there for like consistently get the fuck out of that situation no matter what it is, if it's a relationship, if it's an entrepreneurial venture or whatever it is, whatever industry, and if that pit is in your stomach, if you got to move out of your town, the fuck, it just doesn't feel like it's right that you just got to get out, just get out, because if you're there for too long, you're wasting time, and time is the most valuable thing that you can never get back, I've realized. And you're starting to realize that in Web3 too for me,
Yeah.
but yeah, so that got me to the point of realizing that I needed to move on because of these things that were out of my control. And that was, like I said, at that day I graduated school, I broke up and left the band, and it was on to this whole new part of my life that I had. It felt like this identity of mine that I created, that I could walk around New York and people would say, "That's Scar." Go to LA and say, "That's fucking Psycho." Wherever it was, we were, like that life gone. And it wasn't this like A-list artist sort of thing, don't mistake me, but it was at the point where we could walk into some establishments and people knew who we were, and that was cool, and that was what we were looking for, obviously. But to know that is gone and your identity is like, what do you do now? So and this kind of bridges into the end of two into three. So let me know if you have anything before I go into that.
Yeah,
But
Maddie, anything else before we transition next?
No, and just to reiterate though, man, that is a lot of self-reflection to get to that. And it answers my original question, I think, because, you know, to go back to episode one, the principles that your father instilled in you and being unapologetically you, it sounds like there was something about this process with the band that even subconsciously you knew something was up, and it like kept you from doing that. I'm going to burn every other bridge and go full
Right.
Cortez and just go in on this. And so I think it's interesting because that foundation in a way protected you, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it kept you, it allowed you to get to a point where you could come to that conclusion on your own. Cause that's hard, man. Break up, graduation, get rid of the band, all that stuff at once. Most people would not be able to do that because just change is so overwhelming for people. So I think that's very profound. And
Right.
yeah, I'm curious to see where that takes us.
And I actually
Sure.
I have one more thought here, because we hear this a lot, right? Especially on our show, because we do a lot of leadership mentorship stuff that then spawns into Web3. You're seeing kind of the process now. You mentioned mentor and the power of mentor. I think what people don't talk about enough is the process of people finding mentors and how that worked for you. So I'm interested, um, in what that process looked like for you. Was it just a random occurrence of like, oh, I met this person, we started talking, and you realized this could be a mentor opportunity? Did you like formally ask somebody to be your mentor? Like, what does that process look like? Because I think people talk about mentors, but then don't talk about how they got theirs, you know?
Thank you for asking that because I think that is such an untold story as well. As like, well, here you are, and then that's it. How did that? The how part always gets left
Right.
the fuck out. So
Yep.
happy to tell you. And it all comes from the root of just being you and then shit happens. How this in particular happened is that once I knew that Carlos was here, right? Bowie's guitarist. I knew he was here. I just thought maybe I could be friends and just to say thank you for the work you've done, for writing Fame with John Lennon, for like all the shit that he's done in life and music to be deemed one of the greatest guitarists of all time. So I was like, nobody really, I can't imagine anybody would understand even the freaking professors there, like in the staff, not to have any idea or care as to what that is. Like, that's not who I am. I'm sure I went to college, but I definitely not that, student like that, astute, like trying to like conservative sort of thing. Um, but yeah, so I how it happened, we had to take guitar lessons. Everybody had to take their instrument. So I've been a guitarist my whole life, so this is what I'll do, I guess. And my first lesson with Carl, this fucking guy, he goes, "Hi, I'm not your teacher. I'm not your professor. I'm your mentor. So I might slip with some shits, some pisses, some fucks, but it's all in good name of rock and roll. So sit down, tuck your balls back, and get ready for some rock and roll." I was like, yeah! So that was from that moment on. We kind of like, I mean, I guess he said it to everybody, but from that moment, I was like, yes, and we just hit it off from there. From me showing up to lessons and showing him that I cared and I wanted to be a part of whatever the fuck he was teaching, even though I didn't agree with some of the ways. And it's going back to where I came from and I passed this level. I just showing up and showing him that I'm here. Like, I trust everything you're doing. So, and then through that, we get shared. We obviously, it's not guitar the whole time. You take a break and you talk about shit. So I never pried in any of his business because obviously he has more stories than most people do on this planet. So he just naturally would come. He would talk about Bowie. He would talk about things, and I would show interest in that, tell him where I came from, and in terms of where my influences and stuff. And then turns out one of my other friends, my friend Dave, who went there as well, who I met at Architect, like I said, as well. He's a rock kid as well, so guitarist. So he started getting close with Carlos. And then once Carlos realized that him and I are friends, it started getting to that point where we were doing group activities outside of the lesson room and say, hey, you and Dave, you want to go out to get lunch or something like that? Out of nowhere, I'm like, okay, sure. And then all of a sudden the questions will come out. Dave would be like, yo, so how is it to write Young Americans and being part of that whole thing? And then he's like, well, you don't say, type of thing. And then he would go into it. And then we would just have a great relationship from there. And then once he understood the professional part of what I did with that band Psycha at the time, he came to a show. We actually played at the school and he came and watched. And then he said, I want to write with you all. And I'm like, holy shit, sure, whatever, Carlos. So that he got to understand what I did professionally outside of just being in the classroom. He knew, but he didn't understand, I guess. So that started the mentorship and wanted to see me succeed and just help me with anything and any questions I had. In the most brutally honest motherfucker that lives on this planet. If you ever see in any interview with him, he's just the way it seems. Um, so that's how you get
Beautiful.
a mentor. You be yourself. You be humble. If you're in a situation where somebody that you would love their advice, and any just hear them out. Just you are not. It's not about you. Just be a vessel in that case. Just listen because they're older. They're more experienced. They want to connect with the youth as much as we want to connect with the elderly or the more experienced or whatever the fuck the term is. But so just be you. That's
Yeah.
it. There's nothing more. I mean, if you're an asshole, then it's gonna be hard. So if you by you meaning be an asshole, it's gonna be
Yeah.
hard.
Dude, but you said thank you for sharing that. It was a beautiful story. And I think that the things that get lost and just, oh, you need to find a mentor and then no one talks about it is the couple things that you said too, or well, one, be humble, right? And it
Mhm.
is really about, it's not, it's very less about a two-way conversation. It's more about a be a sponge and make them feel like you're interested. And then two, you said it's a two-way road in the sense that not that you're sharing knowledge as much, but you need to make sure they understand you are extremely interested in any knowledge that comes out of their head.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
people don't talk about how you cultivate that, and that was a beautiful story and the points you need, I think, to hear on how to get a mentor. So thank you for sharing that, man. Maddie, anything?
Nah, man, I want to make sure we move forward so we get it all in there.
Yeah, it was
Sure.
beautiful, man. Beautiful. Okay, so let's go on to like the 2/3, and then
2.5.
we'll get into the
We'll
Web
call
3.
this the Rogue One
Yeah,
episode.
Yes.
This is the Rogue One.
there we go.
Road one. Going rogue. So yeah, so graduate school, break up with the girl, leave the band. Not on great terms, obviously, because of the shit that happened. That you, if you know the Fleetwood story, it's pretty much the same shit. So look it up. I don't want to talk about it, but so I'm out here in this world, just sitting there with my freaking robe on, whatever, from graduation, with the wind flowing. I'm like, what the fuck am I gonna do now? And then this is where it gets kind of cool, I guess, and more just like I still fucking get awesome goosebumps with this, but I here come okay, so to tie this in with Architect and that Westgate band, they wind up being starting this band called 100,000. And I'm like, okay, I've seen this happening. I still visit the studio every once in a while because it's hard to. I'm in college now and no more internship, and I just want to see my old friends and whatnot and see how everybody's doing. And through this time, first of all, Sevendust is the in-house residence at. They recorded all Kill the Flaw. They recorded with the record before that, whatever, self-titled, not self-titled, whatever. Before that, all that Architect, Call Me No One, Clint's side project, and all of his everything was done at Architect at the time. So I got to meet them and be close with them at the time throughout my college career and throughout going into this part of my life. So I got to see the now drummer of 100,000 tour with Sevendust and be their sixth member, their keyboardist, and to produce, not produce, to add production value to their records and with synth elements and more stuff things, but for him to be an added member of the band pretty much. And I was inspiring and even more so, I'm like, I gotta be a part of this band. They've always talked about maybe if the time's right that you could join, we could have an audition. I actually did audition throughout that time, and I just wasn't right. But so at the I went as soon as like, what am I gonna do now? I graduate school, blah blah blah. I'm like, let me reach back out to see what's going on. So they're like, yeah, we need another fucking guitarist. It's about time. Let's go. Let's audition. I'm like, okay, cool. Learn all the songs and in a couple days, go audition at the studio, and it was like brothers sort of thing immediately, and they're like, let's do it. So I became the fifth member, whatever, guitarist of this my favorite band that nobody knew about knows about at the time, and this fucking cool proggy rock metal sort of band that was once Westgate is now 100,000. And I came into the band with half of the record Zodiac being written, and I added my flair on it. And to this day, my most proud work. But so when I graduated school, I joined this band because I needed another thing of music to do immediately. Also working on my own solo material just to prove the people from the past that I could do that myself and lab out. So in the process, I needed that rock element, that metal shit. That's who I am. So I joined that band, started figuring out my own sound in my own way in this freaking basement here, and and then I started I wanted to pick up the torch of the family tradition of paddleball because I saw that my dad was in my it was in my been in my family for years, starting with my grandpa, one of the OGs in the sport. If anybody doesn't know paddleball, it's this New York City, five borough sort of like old school sport that nobody also knows about. Um, you have a paddle, you have a ball, you hit against the wall. If you're ever in Manhattan during NFT NYC, you see all these freaking walls around the city. That's for paddleball and handball. So I took up paddleball because my grandpa was an ex player, and my dad was a pro player. And during the time of the 80s and 90s, when it had all the good sponsors and started getting on ESPN and MSG, when he was a top player in the game. So it was always these things that I would see these trophies in my basement when I was young before the divorce. I'm like, the whole basement's flooded with these fucking trophies that are bigger than me. I'm like, who are you? It turns out he was a pretty good paddleball player. I just never had any interest in playing the sport because I was too preoccupied with soccer and all music and all this shit. So he stopped. He was like his whole claim to fame was he would show up for like 4 years and then disappear and then come back 10 years later and show up and win and all that stuff. Um, so it was about 2016 when I graduated. So about 2017, right in the beginning when I decided I want to get him back. I was like, "You're grumpy as fuck, old man. You got to get back to that spunk. Get your surgeries, whatever you got to do. You and I have some time. Let's just go back to our roots and solidify this fucking relationship if it wasn't cool enough, and let's do something that is so cool that nobody fucking knows about in this sport that never ever got the notoriety that it needed." But so and she's like, okay. So he got his surgeries, he got a knee replacement, he got neck surgery, everything he needed to do just to be able to stand and fucking move, so we could try to do this partner father and son team in the professional environment together. So while he's doing that, I'm like, I gotta start figuring out this shit. So I would go to my hometown courts in Jersey, these little beaten up courts that we used to go to back when I was young, just to try to get me into it. And not really a Jersey sport, so it's only in New York and Florida. What up, Florida? And so I started using the samurai swords with the paddle ball, with these old wooden paddles that they don't use anymore, this smaller ball that they don't use too much anymore. And then hitting the wall just by myself, getting the coordination. And then one day I go to the same court after a month of just hitting, and these old guys are in the back. I'm like, what the shit? I don't want to play with these people here, and like, fuck. So I'm just watching them play, and I get enough courage to step on the court on the other side just to hit the ball around without being scared that they're going to judge me, right? So I start hitting the ball. They're using different paddles, different generation on different balls, and it sounds different coming from my end. So they look over and they're like, "Who are you?" I'm like, "Greg," and they're like, "You're using these things." I'm like, "Yeah, it's my dad's. I don't have any new equipment or anything." And they're like, "What's your name, last name?" I'm like, Sgarlata. And then the guy turns around and he goes, "Holy shit!" He's like a 70-year-old man. He's like, "We got a Sgarlata in the house." I was like, "What?" And at this point, I really understood how much of an impact my family had on the sport. Because you have these old guys, they're like, "I just played with grandpa in Florida last week." And there's like, "I used to play with your dad, blah, 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 blah." It's like the hometown legend sort of thing. So at that point, if I didn't already feel like it's a duty, I had to do this. There's not a lot of younger kids in the sport. I have to be one of those that keep the tradition going. So I played a game with them, sucked. I'm trying to learn this shit. And then through that time of between where I am now, I wind up playing a lot of shows with 100,000. We started touring, doing this stuff, and getting this fucking record, this monster of a record based on the zodiac signs. Every song, 12 songs, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, in the order of the Gemini. I mean, of the zodiac cycle. And we released one song at a time, 1 month at a time. Gave us a year's worth of content. During COVID, when nobody had anything to do, doing home. This is where I learned OBS, by the way, where you could stream from home and do all these things, get the real fans and get them involved in our story. And even though we're not anywhere close to an A-list, a B-list band, there's a small niche of progressive metal that loves 100,000, and all came from that. And so that doing this project at full capacity, doing paddleball at full capacity, and going to the Bronx. I live in Jersey, remember? So going to the Bronx, going to Brooklyn, going to Staten Island, wherever the fuck I had to go to try to meet more people, show my face, and all of a sudden everybody's like, "Oh, Sgarlata, Bob, Greg," and like, cool. And I started getting better and better. And my dad finally, it's time for him to play his first tournament back. We've been playing for a bit. He plays with his old partner, the Hall of Fame and arguably the best female player who's ever played the game, Lisa Michelesi. And she hasn't played for a while. He hasn't played for a while. They came back and they wind up getting to the finals with the greatest of all time, Robert Sastra, and his female partner, Kathy. And they're the goats of the sport. They've been around forever. Racquetball, handball, paddleball Hall of Fame from the 70s. I mean, from the 80s till now, still playing. The greatest. So they came back, and just like they did in the 80s and 90s, they fucking won. And it's like a Rocky story. My dad's like hobbling around, like fucking bleeding everywhere, and they fucking won. And they beat the goats, and again established there. Here I am for a little bit. Fuck all you. I'm gonna win and come out. And at that moment, I met this girl. Wound up being my girlfriend to the day, and she was an ex pro tennis player, and represented Puerto Rico during Fed Cup, and played with Monica Puig as a doubles partner, and Louisville #1 player for female. And so there's this girl coming in, introducing her, whose father introduced her to me and my dad, because her dad and my dad used to play together back in the day. So hey, how you doing? Oh, here's my daughter. Here's my son. Oh, blah blah blah. Went up going to another court with her. She's a top female in the sport now. We met, and wound up doing a tournament together. We started playing, and ultimately, for that long story short, my mixed doubles partner, we're one of the top teams now, and she's my girlfriend, and that's what we do. And this is what we had, the 100,000 thing. We had paddleball going on at the same time, and then all of this, to tie this together to COVID and me doing my own thing, to bring it to the dance world of house music, and me wanting to just poke at a different genre, because I was tired of just doing one thing and I wanted to do a little bit more, and had some experience from other collaborations and throughout this time in the EDM world. So let me just try. Reached out to my manager, say, hey, what can we do? So he reached out to somebody else and knocked on the door of this one artist called Morgan Madison, a no-name DJ at the time, and just like a no-name fucking kid like me in the dance world at the time. And it's like, hey, here's this singer, me, here's this DJ, Morgan, go. And we're like, okay, middle of COVID, let's do a Zoom session, because at the time we couldn't go anywhere, locked the fuck in. And he sent me one of his tracks, and here, top line it, sing on it, write it. So I'm like, here we go. My first time ever doing this, and I hated it. I fucking did in 10 minutes. I'm like, this is not gonna work. I hated it. Sent it back. Me and my girlfriend listened to it in the car. Fucking sucks. Fuck that. Done with this. Sorry, Morgan. It's gonna suck. Sorry. So then calls me back the next day, and he's in tears, and he goes, this is my favorite thing I've ever heard, the best thing I've ever heard in my life. I'm like, sure, okay, yeah, that was the point. Let's go. Whatever that means. Long story short, this got picked up by Mousetrap, Dead Mouse's label, started getting it on every mix fucking tape, and every I guess possible DJ blog and possible, and then it got into Sirius and became a breaker, a BPM breaker on Sirius, and started rising up the charts. And I saw, first time in my life, I was able to see the process of how something came from nothing to #1. And it was about a 5-6 month process to see it slowly rising up Sirius charts, and to be knocking David Guetta off, Tiesto, Dead Mouse, everybody shouts off, to become deemed the #1 song in North America in August of 2021. And I was drunk as fuck at Epcot at the time when I got the news. So I was drinking around the world, having a good old margarita in Mexico. And so yeah, and then so that kind of ties the three parts. And I met one more person who's my main music partner to the day, which is Ming. And we established our names in the Brazilian house market. I got introduced to him because he needed a vocalist at the time as well, as he was producing artists in Brazil and they needed vocalists. So this is during COVID, same time I met Morgan, and we wound up servicing a lot of our vocals, a lot of our writing for these Brazilian artists that in that market, and we used that momentum to start our own project called Ash Nova to this day, and that's been going strong. So that's the 2.5.
Jesus, man.
Fuck.
Whoa.
This is
Sorry, I know it's a lot, but
Whoa.
this is great. This is great. This is fantastic. Because we have a lot of people on the show where we have to really dig deep to get stuff out, but like you just got to start talking and it all comes. So
That's good. I like
this
it.
is great.
awesome.
I would say a couple things here that stood out to me. One, just the transition to the house music was very interesting to me, and then the I know nothing about paddleball and I'm gonna do that. So
Sure.
let's talk to us about that kind of experimentation mindset that you have. Where does that come from? Any thoughts about to share with anybody that is struggling with the same thing of like, I want to do a bunch of different things and I don't know what to do or how to start? I think that's an
Right.
interesting conversation. What are your thoughts?
I think that whatever we are searching for in general, whenever all these different there's one purpose, there's one big term and I guess equator to all of these things that I just talked about, paddleball, music, and all this, even Web3, but we'll get there. But is that it's all based around the community. And I never realized, because when I started paddleball at the time, I was right, no girlfriend, no career, no anything. There was just starting the 100,000, just starting with another hobby that I wanted to do because I had some time, just try to figure out myself again. And for me personally, and I think this is rooted in everybody, even for the introverts as well, is that you need people to understand you. You need something to know who you are, to just to know that you exist, whatever that purpose is. You need that purpose. And I think that's why I chased all of these things, is because I didn't have an identity. I didn't have a sense of community, real new friends in this next venture of my life. So I mistakenly did all these things and found this incredible communities in each one. A whole new music community, a whole new old school and new school in real life paddleball community that has so much respect for each other. And I think that is so fucking important for anybody that is trying to figure out what to do next, or it is again rooted in being humble and just being you, and then trying some things in general and that may seem weird or not cool or scary, and just falling in love with the process. And then at some point you stumble upon a new thing, a new community, and a new idea that you wind up being noticed for in the most minute way, or the most, um, I guess, maximum way and vast way. So if that
No,
answers the question.
that answered the question. It was beautiful. One more thing, and then Maddie, I'll let you go. Another fascinating thing is talking about going from zero to number one and
Mhm.
seeing that process. Can you talk to us about that? What was it? Was there a lot of marketing and network that went into it? Did you just catch lightning in a bottle? Like what did that process look like? And
Right.
give us that experience.
I'll never know fully what the labels do. I don't think anybody does, but I think what I was told and what I experienced was that I just did something new. I tried the my first time ever doing something with this genre, and just trying it, and it happened, right? Took it. The artist took it, Morgan. The label took it, and then all of a sudden, it started hitting the little milestones at a time. First thing was that it gets signed. to a notable EDM label called Mousetrap, Dead Mouse's label. And then from there, it's what do you do? What do they do with it? Because anybody could get signed. It's just like, what do they shelve it? Does it get the legs it needs? Because a label releases like at least 8 songs a month. So like it's a lot of songs a year, and there are many labels. So how is it that your song got up? Has to do a little bit, I guess, with the song itself, the relationships you make along the way, and a little bit of luck. But luck obviously comes when opportunity meets hard work and all that stuff. So it goes from the label to the marketing, and when the marketing happened, it seemed like it started getting pushed. Morgan and I were getting like pushed from Mousetrap as Morgan's this new artist and here's this new vocalist. And I guess people like that story when there's some new cats coming into town that have some interesting. Morgan's this random fucking dude in Idaho, and I'm some rock dude in fucking tri-state area, and maybe that's part of the story that they liked. And then all of a sudden it gets on Dead Mouse's mix in like February or March or so of 2021, and then from there it gets deemed it gets a chance to be on BPM, the biggest dance station in pretty much the world, I think. And and this is on Sirius XM. And once it got on there, it was quickly deemed the BPM breaker. And every month there are, I think, 3 or 4 songs that get get deemed the BPM breaker, and that means that it has the highest chance for it to break and be this next song of the summer or some shit. So out of the songs that were selected, I guess ours, which was a cool thing to get selected in general, in just like April or so, and then it started just going. It started just getting played more, and how it equates to number one, whatever, is the amount of plays on top of what the audience likes, on top of what the programmers at the station like. So in the interim of this, while it started getting up, I was always curious how artists get paid. So I found a website that is able to track your payment in relation to your actual Sirius XM platform that pays you itself. So I was able to monitor all the times, every time it got played. Turns out it started to get to the playing of when it hit like May or June or so, July. It started getting played 10 to 20 to 30 times a day, spins on the radio, which is a lot. And I had a couple conversations with the programmers, Geronimo, Rita, the biggest names of the DJ programmer world of who is people playing the music on Sirius. So they wound up loving my voice and loving the story. And so I think a lot of it has to do with just having a relationship with them as well, and them believing in you and them pushing it. And ultimately, it just hit. Once it got in the top 20 or so, it just kind of went up from there very fast. It got top 20 in August, and then it quickly became top 10. And then I'm getting these notifications. My girlfriend would have the the notification on for when they announced the next top 10, the next top 3, the next whatever. So every Friday it was, or whatever time we would do it, and it was just every week it was going up and up and up. And by the time it was our vacation in Disney, we're at Epcot with a couple of hours, it was in the top 3. So I was like, fuck, it's gonna be a really stressful week for me. So it was the last day at Epcot, and drinking around the world, wine, and finish in Mexico, by the way, because if you start with that margarita, you're fucked. So we get to Mexico, and I'm already fucked, and I'm drinking this fucking margarita, and then the alarm goes off. I'm like, fucking shit, let's listen. And there's a video, and I'll send it to you on my Instagram. But of one of the couples was taking a video of it. It's pretty funny, and I'm glad it got that moment. But it was like all of a sudden I knew I was going to be in the top 3 because I was in top 5, and it just kept trending that way. And the moment they hit number 3, it was who was it? I think it was Atlantis or fuck, I think it was them. And then number 2 was David Guetta. And as soon as I knew that fucking Guetta, who's been with Shouse, was the number 1, all I need is your love tonight. That song was number 1 for like a month. As soon as I saw that hit number 2, I was like, fuck, okay. So I think that means number 1. And then all of a sudden I was like, words are just sucking, it's all over. So, and they said it. It was like all of a sudden number 1, Far From Home, Morgan Madison, Gregg Sgarlata, and I fucking started jumping, jumping on the shrubs in Epcot, and everybody's like, just get off. The security is hysterical. So at that moment, I was never one to really chase clout or chase all these things, and but this was the moment that I realized that it is not about the outcome of the work you do. The best feelings, the best memories, the best stories, the best work, everything, the best, the most important, crucial things that happen is not the outcome of the result. It's the work that leads up to it. So by the time that number one hit, I had I I felt like nothing changed. I'm sitting there like, holy fuck! My whole life I've been chasing for that, whatever it may be, that success. Never really the clout, but the success. And that felt to me like a success in the moment. I went back to the hotel. There was like a little happy hour, free margaritas or whatever from 4 p.m. to 6. So I made sure we got back for them. I told everybody like, please just give me a couple minutes in the pool. Take a little bit extra time to get changed. Let me just have a couple minutes to myself. So I'm sitting there with a strawberry daiquiri, and it was the first time since I could remember, like I don't know, years since I was an innocent Litlun, that I was like, I was able to fucking breathe, and I was like, okay. I had 10 minutes of feeling that bliss, and I was like, back to fucking work. Now what the fuck happens? And so like I had it doesn't feel like anything's changed. The
Yeah,
conversations start differently,
Yeah.
when you
Yeah.
reach out and
for
shit with
sure.
some collaborators, but nothing changes. You
Yeah.
have to work harder, and
And
you're not just fucking roll around a Bugatti.
right. And
Yeah,
and
right.
now that you understand the power of kind of the conversation we have, because you had described all of this hard work that you did, going to school at 19 and playing music and meeting all these people.
Yeah.
All of that led up to that. It wasn't just you making a song, right? And that's a beautiful way to say it.
Yeah.
Maddie, anything before we
Well,
kind of get to
yeah.
Web3? Because that was
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. I think there's one thing that's that's been overlooked. You mentioned it, but after all that hard work, after the climb to get to number one, what I think is interesting and that a lot of people might miss is you recorded that song and thought it was shit, right?
Very true.
You took this track and you're like, I'm gonna give this a try. So first of all, you did give it a try. A lot of people wouldn't. You've been doing metal your whole life. All of a sudden, you're like, what am I doing here? You gave it a shot. You worked on it, but despite the fact that you didn't like it, you still turned it back over to Morgan. Um, but it's interesting to me that like your thought process with all of your background in music, at this point you have a degree in it, all of the things going in your mind, you didn't have a hit. And I think that that's wild because any content creator, any person who wants to build influence, any person who wants to be a writer one day, how many times has a Oscar winning what do you call it?
Writer,
Screenplay?
script,
Screenplay?
yeah, that too. Yep.
Screenplay been thrown into the trash because a person was like, this is garbage. Think
Hmm.
about that, right? And I just think it's interesting that you still gave it a shot. And even though to you it wasn't something, it was gold to everyone else. And I just think there's a lesson there because I think we do that to ourselves a lot. I know Mike and I, dude, the YouTube algorithm is just wild, right? And not as wild as the charts to get to number one, but it's like this crazy AI algorithm, and it's wild how like sometimes Mikey and I will put all of this time and energy into a video, all this production, 17 views. And then Mike will go out to a pier just like on a fun day with family and do a quick little, no production, just filming with his iPhone, say something, boom, 3,000 views in 2 seconds. And you're like, what just happened? And it's really wild how the world works. And I just think it's important for creators and anybody, if you're going after something, man, you just don't know the one that's going to hit. I think that's the real thing there. And then once it does, be willing to work it and grind and put in now that work ethic that you already had
Yeah.
to enjoy that success. And I think that's something really cool to
And to
think
cap
about.
on that, just put yourself out there, man. That's the other thing
Yeah.
right there. Are
Yeah.
thoughts there, Scar?
Yeah, thank you, first of all. And I think everything you're saying, it relates to me and all creators and artists alike, and I'm with you. Um, it's
Yeah.
fucking scary to put yourself out there. I still don't put it out as much as I'd like, like I don't dabble with TikTok too much, like
Yeah.
I always found had a hard time communicating with that, I guess with the youth, kind of the whatever what it is accepted
Sure.
now. Even I mean, I'm not an old dude, but I have a hard time connecting in that sense with making it feel organic. So I always chose the nature of going the other direction for music, which is collaborative natures,
Yeah.
and that maybe the work will show rather than hoping that I could, even though it's incredible form of technology and you need it too, but rather than just to be noticed and boom like that. So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, like throwing yourself out there in whatever way is possible. There's no formula for music. There's no
Yeah.
formula for being a creative. There's no formula to know the algorithm of YouTube, even though everybody tries to every year. The new ways to trip the
Yeah.
algorithm.
And tries to sell it to you too.
You, not a chance you know what you're talking about.
Right. Right.
So I don't know, like, but it all comes down to like how many times have you? I mean, maybe you haven't done this, but like I've tested this out on my Instagram and a couple other things where you post the same content 10 different times, 10 different days of the week, 10 different times, the
Yeah.
same video, and it's has nothing to do, somewhat to do, but not as much to do as what you think with the actual content itself and just when it happened and
Yep.
how it
Yep.
happened.
Yep.
Who was awake
Yeah.
at that time to click whoever to engage. So
Well, not
there's no
only that, what's happening on the internet? How does it relate to the other content that's out there, right? There's just so
Yep.
many factors. And
Yeah.
that's why one of the number one strategies for successful content creators is to retweet successful old content, right?
do that.
Because it makes sense. It already got eyeballs and it's probably going to get some more eyeballs again.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's
Um,
beautiful.
Yeah.
So
And I think
just to be clear, you're okay going about maybe 10, 15 minutes over,
yeah.
because we
okay.
want to get to Web 3.
Yeah,
And
that's definitely important.
yeah, yeah, let's get
But
to
yes,
Web
and
3 too.
and before we get there, one piece of advice that I think at this point I feel confident and not an imposter syndrome sort of thing saying, because I've experienced it, but I don't whenever you okay, perfect comparison. Whenever you see like the Grammy Award for
Mhm.
best new artist, it's like as a younger artist and younger musician, I was always like, damn, that's a new artist. I'm a new artist. Why aren't I up there? And it's like, well, actually, what you don't know is that new artist has been a new artist for fucking 10 years already or 5 years already. They've been
Yep.
grinding. So there's this horrible, horrible notion that you have to zoom real quick or you're never gonna get seen, you're never gonna get noticed, whatever the fuck, you're never gonna have an audience. But so that in tandem with my story of what I learned to get whatever little success of this, and where I could possibly see the light of the real fucking success is why that happened and why the Grammy award for best new artist happens is because people just kept fucking knocking at the door. They just kept putting themselves out there in their own way. I just kept fucking knocking at every door I could. When I was in college, I was reaching out to when I wasn't sleeping, reaching out to every promoter possible to play a show, reaching out, blah, blah, blah. Here's my band. Here's our shit, EPK, blah, blah, blah. And, 100 people, 99 would say no, but then the one says yes. And all of a sudden you're playing the Whiskey Go Go in LA. And you're like, holy shit. And then there are people there, and then all of a sudden, it's like those 99 people didn't care. Then you start getting the 10 that I was like, oh, I didn't see this email. And now that you said, oh, and then those doors enter, and then you
Yeah.
get a fucking call from Mousetrap that your shit's successful, and then it's got blah blah blah. But I
That's
would have
amazing.
never this if I didn't knock and said, hey, manager, try this one more time and see if they have anything else, and maybe we experiment with something new.
Yeah.
And it turns out that just luck happens when you just fucking knock it up, bro.
Yeah,
So
yeah. It's the success is a culmination of luck and but luck is it's not pure chance. It's a lot of work. And
Yeah.
I think you said it very, very succinctly. You could say new artists are not new. New
mhm,
artists are grinding for 5 plus years, 10 plus years, and that we talk about this theme a bajillion times. It's probably my favorite theme that we've talked about over success. And it's the simple principle that consistent work over a long period of time is probably your best formula for success.
Right.
Out of all of the things that we talk about, I think that's become my number one. Maddie, any thoughts before we move to Web3?
Yeah, no, I love it, man. This is good. It takes 10 years to become an overnight success.
Fuck yeah.
Yes. That's a good way to cap that short because that's going to be a short. All right, man. So with all of this amazing knowledge and information, take us. Since we've been going for a hot minute at this point. Give us kind of your condensed. This is how I found Web3, so we can get more into your project and what you're doing now.
Sure. So came at the same time the number one happened. So August of 2021, September of 2021, I started hearing about these things called NFTs and Clubhouse, all that shit. I was trying to learn a little bit more. I heard that music was happening with them, and I heard that you could make $1 million overnight. Of course, let me get interested in this. So I started learning pretty quickly that the possibilities of being able to provide exclusivity for fans and whatever capacity was something that piqued my interest. So I heard right NFTs could do that. So I started to learn a little bit more about how I could possibly provide more cool, exclusive sort of value, unique opportunity for fans because we're getting a lot more, and between 100,000 between my own stuff, seems like a cool possibility to do that. Turns out I never did anything with it at the time, and I more so used that as a vessel to start understanding the space as a whole. I realized that pretty quickly around after doing the quick YouTube like 10-minute videos of what is an NFT sort of thing, to the nth degree. Here comes that freaking college grind again that I was preparing for this, where I would do my work, doing the music and all this shit during the day, and grind throughout the night. And only time that I could to learn about as quickly as I can about NFTs, because I just didn't want to be late to another thing. Always been late to social media, always been late to whatever form of technology. So I was like, not this time. And when everybody is saying, like, when I'm asking what are these NFTs, they're like, fuck that, it's stupid, it's imaginary, never gonna do anything, it's never gonna work. So I'm like, well, fuck you and fuck you. So I'm gonna try. And around October or so, once I learned late September, started to learn enough about what it may be. I realized that there's a whole space that needs things in general. Everything's so new, right? So I started honing in on my strengths and figure out how I could utilize my strengths to get into this community. Music, who would have thought? So I started reaching out to YouTube, biggest influencers in Web3 and NFTs before I knew what Web3 was. NFTs, you have Absolute Salt, you have Dope Oxide, you have Scourge, you have Ryan D, you have all these names at the time that were the big names in the space. So I reached out to everybody, the old school music promoter sort of me. Hey, here's me. I could do music for you and whatever you may need. Turns out there weren't any people doing music for these projects, meta experiences at the time. So I start to learn what Discord was. I start to learn that my Twitter is in the vessel, the piece that is the trick for all this at the time to open up the conversations. And I started making music for a couple of small projects, and starting to understand the transactional value of Ethereum, small amounts, just whether it's for free or just a small amount, so I could get the process done. And then with the influencers, I never had a real big, hoorah in the music way for them, but it was more so just opening the door of a conversation and say, hey, if you need music, let me know. Oh, cool. They will all answer somehow, and then say thank you. We'll hop on a call with a couple of them, and turns out they didn't really need it, but it's more so on call if you need it. And so ultimately with that, Absolute Salt from the Ascendants at the time, he was one of the guys I had a call with, and he was like, "Cool, thank you for sharing this. I'll keep that in mind. But you sound really interesting, and thank you for this conversation. Let me give you some access to one of the levels of our Discord community alpha group at the time." And I'm like, "What the fuck does that even mean? Let me just start." Okay, sure. So I started to learn what an alpha group was, what a Discord really, the different aspects of the channels and how you level up, and how people pay subscription, whatever they mint this for this pass for this sort of area of Discord. And at some point I saw him post something that says a video editor needed for his YouTube videos. I'm like, I've done that once or twice. Let me try to apply. Turns out, long story short, with that, I got the gig, and it was between me and one other guy. A couple hundred people, I think, applied, and I got the gig. It was because I was able to be the right communicator. I promised that I could communicate. Maybe hit the other guys better than me at editing video, but you'll always be able to count on me, and you're gonna need that more than some dude that may be able to do it whenever you need or not. I know you need at least 2 a week. I got you. Um, um, so that got me into as a team member for the Ascendants. I started to see what I didn't have to grind for whitelist anymore. I started getting the whitelist because I'm here as a not a core team member yet, but more as a member to get the whitelist and
Mhm.
provide value in the video sense. So ultimately, that happened. Ukraine war hit. Absolute Salt had to attend to some family matters or personal matters. I'm not sure. And all of a sudden, there weren't any more videos to edit. And I'm like, fuck, what do I do? I'm taking up a place on the team, and I don't want to just be here and do nothing. So let me try to. I see these whitelists coming in. Let me try to get whitelists for us too. Maybe I could use my Twitter again. I didn't know this was a job of a collaboration manager at the time. So I just started doing it without asking anybody. And I started bringing using Twitter, which was taboo at the time. You never reached out to Twitter back then. You always reached out via, open tickets and shit, on servers and Discord. So everybody's and I was like the only doxed motherfucker in the space, it seemed like at the time. So everybody's weirded out that this random dude is asking me about NFTs and crying from a really good, well-known alpha group at the time. And like, I don't know if this is real. So turns out people really like it. I guess they were responsive to it. I started bringing in whitelists from everybody, and I was able to do that. And I guess the community manager at the time saw the value in that, and I immediately got hired as the collab lead for it, core team member, salary at the time when there was a lot there was more when there was money in the space. And I ultimately, that started my journey as a collaboration manager representing one of the top alpha groups at the time. Got me into Bridge 3 to know all the influencers, to start my career as an advisor and collaboration manager for pre-mint projects to help them have a successful launch, and meeting more people, and ultimately my co-founder Snack from Bridge 3 and in real life at NFT NYC last year. And when we decided that it's time to do it right for our own project, which was all based around the core value of onboarding the next generation of Web3 and providing value to our team and community in the ways that we were never able to be
Dude,
provided value.
beautiful, beautiful story.
Yep.
Real quick, right off of that, since we're still fresh in your background,
Mhm.
love to hear how your career as a professional musician has helped you in the Web3 NFT world.
Sure. I think it comes from, first of all, on two things: understanding the grind aspect of understanding how, in the grind aspect of um of working in general. There's a lot of people that this is. It seems not a knock on anybody, but it seems like this. There's a lot of younger kids in this. There's a lot of first time business ventures. A lot of first time people really doing something that for themselves or putting themselves out there. Totally cool, but not a lot of them have the experience of the work ethic and the understanding of how to just have a basic conversation with people, and knowing how to relate with people and whatnot. So I think of constantly shooting for whatever I needed to do in the most respectful way possible for music, and getting my name out there and getting my face and being persistent with everybody to show them that I can be of service and of value when I don't have the resume to do so, but definitely the will, hard work, and communication part, and just overall just understanding of basic 101 human nature. Like, I'm your guy. Like, I'll figure it out and we'll do it together, and without an ego. So that's one part. And then understanding how to, I guess, build a community in a sense, because of and providing shit for your fans, for your community, because in the music world, it's all you fucking got. If you don't have fans, you got nothing. And again, I'm no A-list artist, but I was able to see a good amount of people that a healthy amount of people that respected what I did, didn't respect what I did, and was able to pinpoint them and always provide value for them and make them feel as they should be and are part of what we're doing. So being able to understand the community part for music and providing value to fans, your community, and being able to have the work ethic to showcase that you don't need exactly a college education or resume for Web3, but you, from your basic experience in life, you could provide value in your own way from your strengths to push that together.
No, that was a great
Yeah.
explanation. I love that. And I think the natural follow up there is today, in current day, not back in 21 where, not being doxxed was the meta and what you experienced. If there was a new person saying like, "Hey, even though it's a bear market, I'm really interested in Web3 and getting into NFTs," what
Mhm.
would you tell them and recommend
Sure.
for them to do?
Um, I'd say start with the same way I did, is knowing what your strengths are. I'd say you figure out what are a couple of your strengths. Like, are you good at communicating? Are you good at music? Are you good at whatever? Offer that for free. Show people. You don't. A lot of people come to this like, oh, how am I going to become full time Web3? And it's like your third day. It's like fucking relax, Johnny. It's relax. Just just show people who you are. I get hit up every day in the DMs like, how do I help me? Like sure, like just start. I can only help you if you help yourself first, and that's by showing people that you are willing to help, that you're knowledgeable in some field, you're a competent individual, and you're not trying to do this all for yourself. Even though we all, we're doing this for ourselves as well, but we have to showcase that we are a part of this together to move the space forward. So for a newcomer, in a nutshell, I'd say even though it's a bear market, doesn't matter what market you're in, just learn the basics of how to mint an NFT, how to possibly flip it, just simple transactional elements of buying and selling an NFT, so you understand that process. And then if you want to build, if you want to earn, if you want to be a part of the community, start entering. So type in on YouTube. There's some great influencers, we'll call them, that good place to start. To who are the best projects to right now? Legato from Omega Alpha, great one. You guys, a lot of other great freaking crypto gorilla, great people that you could look at, and they'll tell you real honest answers, no paid shill, who they think and their proven results from are some of the top communities right now. Get into those communities and start to interact in Discord. Just get in the general chat, see how the communication works, see what the weird shit is, see what the not weird shit is, and find your place, and then start meeting people. You
Yeah.
know, I'd say that is that.
Love it,
So
man.
let me ask you this. Would you, if you were getting into this when you started the research, if you had gotten in during the bear market rather than the bull, do you think it would have kept your attention?
Yeah, I think arguably maybe more, because I honestly I was able to um flip a little bit in the beginning. Not anywhere. I wasn't no millions or anything like that, but I missed that bull a little bit. I just caught the end where, like if you remember, like the crypto bats era of 2021 and early
Yep.
2020 when I first came in, and I just missed that one, and then
Sold one
that's
for
when
an ETH, I think.
right, it's good for you. I missed it. So all of that, I came in, I started to understand a little bit how to flip stuff for profits, and realize that um, if you're looking to make a profit, it's all about small gains over a long period of time. And I think that it's really hard to bank on, the one big
Interesting.
flip and shit. So I was able to make some consistent. My
Yeah.
goal was just hit 2 times at minimum what you're doing at the time when shit was going for 10 times and 5 times. But just as soon as it hits 2 times, if it all wasn't already 10 times, just sell it at 2. That's it. You're always over time, you're gonna win. So every time I would
Yeah.
just shit for 2, whatever whitelist. And I was lucky, I was part of an entity that was giving me whitelist. So I was able to do it in that meta. But so that I guess I have to look at it from a different point of view
Well,
now.
was it the money or was it the tech that
Um,
that really got you interested?
the community part. I wanted to meet people. Again, like going back to
There
the
it was.
Powerball stuff, to the music,
Yep.
like this
Community.
another what I was chasing wasn't the idea of money was there, but I knew I was not. It was a pipe dream. I'm not going to get a million overnight. And back in maybe in the Cool Cats era, is a lot easier, easier.
Yeah.
But
Right.
but I realized that I was again chasing another community that I didn't want to be late for, and overall there's the tech, of course, but nowadays it's about the tech too. But
Yeah.
I didn't understand any of that. It was interesting to me, the decentralized this and that. I just had no idea. I couldn't quantify it. I'm not a dev. I'm not a left side thinker too much. It's more so like the right side artist and community driven, understanding people, I guess, part of that wanted me to get involved in the space. So now I'm a builder. I didn't have any intention. I always wanted to provide in a way, but I got to the point where I'm like, I want to do this in the way I do music, but in this way. So if it was a bear market, I would still be hungry as fuck because
Yeah.
I still see the space as a place for probably even more now, honestly, like less hype, but more of an open space to just be in and be that person to help people in specific ways. Um, but yeah, because it was moving very fast in the bull market, and
Yeah.
now
Yeah.
that the bear market has just weeded out and purged the motherfuckers who don't deserve to
Yeah.
just
They've
like
purged. They've purged.
purged. Now it's the time for us builders to
Yeah.
really
For
build
sure.
and set the pathway. There's no, I don't care what anybody says. Nobody knows what they're doing. Nobody knows what's going to come. Everybody knows that the only thing people know is that we all have to move together in order for the space to grow and for anybody to make money, anybody to make a name for themselves. So in order for the whole space to grow, you have to educate the next generation. You have to onboard them, provide them opportunity in the ways that we weren't really able to do it, maybe, and help offset that a little bit. And and just continue to be a good community member and network and show your face, because
Right.
that's the only way we're gonna go together. And not to gatekeep shit at the top. If you're a top cat, like, you got to move with the people who are doing similar stuff and in a collaborative nature.
Yeah.
Collaborate.
So one kind of like general Web3 question, and then we'll spend
Yeah.
about 10 minutes on what you're doing. Looking back now, uh, what do you think your biggest failure is, and or what you would have done different? And is that using the wrong platform or chasing the wrong thing? Any
Mhm.
thoughts there?
I don't know. I don't. I maybe because I was thinking about this. When was I thinking about this? Maybe today or yesterday. I saw. I forgot what it was, but regardless, whatever project it was, I saw that it was. Oh yeah. I stumbled upon an old group chat because somebody left. When you get pinged, it's like, holy shit, I haven't seen the Ascendants in this fucking chat in like 8 months.
Right,
So I'm like,
right.
oh, somebody just left. Okay. So I looked at that project, and it was from May or April of 2020, 2022, about a year ago. And I looked at it and I was like, oh, it still exists, the Twitter page, and it's and hasn't been active in a while, so straight rug, sure, but sold out. I'm like, fuck. So the thought went in my head about like, fuck, if I just made a project earlier and with real value and real, not rugging shit, if I just started a little earlier in the building part, would I have been able to start my um, founder builder journey and maybe make a little bit more status and have a little bit more money and stuff like that in the beginning? Did I miss that market? Did I miss that sellout? Just the shit. But I'm like, the more I thought about that, I was like, because of course you always got to think these things. And everybody thinks about these things, but filter it out, and it's like, fuck, maybe, but I don't care because then this wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't have met the team that I have now. I wouldn't have onboarded this incredible fucking team that we're so proud of having now. We wouldn't have been a part of these
Yeah.
awesome projects. We wouldn't have had a relationship with the Alpha Bot, the Ape List friends, and be a part of their journey and like that whole thing, and like everything. So my whole story wouldn't be the same, and I don't really care.
Right.
Because this is great. I made
Yeah.
okay money. I made great relationships, which is so much more important. And then you always have that, like, I could have fucking 10 times that money, but it's not. I could have, not about that.
Absolutely. No, I think that's great insight. And Maddie, anything before I move on to the kind of project
Yeah, I was gonna
question?
say, I'd love to hear the pitch, man. I want to
Yeah.
hear. Tell us the project, and for time purposes, if you were to give us the elevator pitch, what's the like 30 to 60 second? What are we looking at with Expedition Labs?
Sure. From the start, Snack and I met in NFT NYC after many months of working together and learning what it took to make a project and what to break a project, and we decided that we wanted to start something that is based in the principle of onboarding the next generation of Web3 and providing them education and job opportunities and whatever type of opportunities to help them grow in the space, while onboarding the most incredible team that we could ever do, who are experts and all stars in their own field and their own niche of the space, hosting, alpha, collab management, whatever, community management, mods, just have the most stacked team we could possibly do. And we believe we could do so from the relationships that we built over the months and years that we've been here, and with the overall vision of people want to um, I wanted to reach out to the people who are just about founders to that level of their projects, of, the big projects that we all know, but never had something fully their own and wanted to build with them. We wanted to start from the beginning with them and not be one of those projects that have built as founders and have this idea and then we're ready to launch and then we get the team together and not still be able to pay them anything, or just for them to not really understand. So we wanted to start early, show the process that we're building with our team, with our and while we onboard the next generation of Web3. And we always wanted to have a steady treasury, a steady foundation to sit on. So we wanted to focus on our strengths, and this is before we launched, by the way. So we want to focus on our strengths of advising, collab management, of helping projects have the leg to stand on for their launch. So we've been offering our services to projects to help them have a successful launch, and that is what we have one way in which we've built a strong treasury to stay on, to be able to pay team, to be able to prep for community. And now we're at the stage of we're just starting to onboard select community members 5 at a time, funneling them into one group chat and providing them value for them to understand who we are and what's going on here, and for the ultimate onboarding into our server where they will have extreme opportunity and a cool gamified experience.
Dang.
That
Okay.
was a lot,
That
but
was a lot.
it's good. So
90 seconds.
that was maybe 90, maybe 2 minutes.
Sorry.
No, that's cool. So I would say that brings up the next good phase, which is the next 6 to 12 months. It looks like you have some pretty defined stages, which is right now you're still in. Well, just take us through that. What are you currently doing, and what does the next
Yeah.
12 months look like? And kind of break that up into stages as you see the company grow.
Sure. I guess it comes from partnering with like-minded companies and communities that share the values that we do, to help build the infrastructure as to what we're all doing here, to help them evolve, to help us evolve and push the names forward, and sharing our values from that, in tandem with starting to onboard our community, like I said. And we're doing this by choosing very selectively who wants to be there. And we're figuring out who those people are by Twitter Spaces. One, first and foremost, we have our 3 a week that we're doing. One is called the Decentralized Mind, which is hosted by Rico Suave from Llamaverse, Bonglo from You Should Know Bonglo, and Next as well. All very reputable alpha names in the space, and that is focused on more the analysis of projects in the market. And so we have our specific tools and moderators in these spaces to be able to see who the people are engaging and showing interest. And we have some tools to also really get nitty gritty with that. So we're able to vote as a team who each week the 5 community members are that we want to onboard into our ecosystem, and start providing value that way for them. So by doing some spaces, having tools to showcase us who the people are engaging with us, that we want to provide them this opportunity to be with us, and vice versa, we're able to start onboarding this. And then within the next 4 to 6 weeks, we'll start opening our Discord, hopefully, and start providing the what will be happening in there, and a cool gamified experience that we don't want to get too involved with the tech yet, because we're very much so under promising and over delivering with that. So I want to take it one step at a time. And but yeah, it's really exciting. And then at the same time, onboarding, utilizing our services and continuing to help these projects come in and have a successful launch, and especially with the Web2 adoption of major players into this space, and being able to be that consultation and and advisements and provider for their venture into Web3, because too many of those people are failing and it does not help the space grow. They just have to trust some Web3 native folks instead of listening to themselves, thinking they could do it themselves. So
Right, right. I love it, man. Maddie, any thoughts there, or we can start
Yeah,
winding it down? But this has been
just
great.
yeah. So here's the thing, man. You have you have a lot of really amazing things to say about the project. Um, and I haven't looked at your marketing efforts or whatnot. What I would suggest is like if you took everything you said and boiled that down to like 3 or 4 sentences, what would it be? And then if you took that and said, all right, now make it one sentence, what is that? Because Mike and I can hear what you're saying, but we've been interviewing founders for the last year and a half, 2 years, and so we're used to hearing that lingo. I would
mhm,
just simply say, if the goal is to onboard the next generation in here, uh, they're going to need real, like, digestible, bite-sized pieces, and what that means.
right,
And it sounds like it's a very the reason it's such a what am I trying to think of? It's like a vast venture that you're going after, like such an expansive venture, is because you've been in the space long enough and you've assembled the who's who, right? So all of you are superstars. And so in your mind, you're like, this is what we're doing. Here it is. You know what I mean? Um, but as you remember, when you were back on like what is an NFT days, there's a lot to absorb. And I'm sure you already have a process for that. And maybe that is something you can speak to. But I would
mhm,
say for the new person, um, help them kind of like get there a little bit gradual, to give
right.
them something to process. Or do you have any? Is that already part of the plan?
It is indeed, and it's there, but I don't want to reveal too much yet. I know
Sure.
Snap will kill me, but
No worries. No
but yeah,
worries.
I appreciate that. I'm definitely one of I'm that type of guy that's like, oh shit, we got these cool things coming in,
I'm the
and
same way, man.
right, and
That's why I recognize it, because I do
yeah,
that same thing. I get excited and I just fire hose everything.
for sure.
Um,
And
for
Snack is
sure.
that
That's
guy that
awesome.
he's like you two are yin and yang with each other, left side, right side. I have the same sort of thing with Snack. I'm that 100 fucking ideas, and one will stick. Snack is the guy that's like,
I love it.
relax, good ideas, but fucking relax and focus it, and we'll figure it out how to
I
get
love
that
it. No,
together.
that's
Yeah,
cool, man. That's very
and
cool.
thank you
Yeah,
for
man.
that.
No,
And I
No,
do
that's good.
agree.
absolutely. Any other
I,
thoughts, Maddie? I thought that was a good thought.
Yeah, no, that was. I think it's. I'm still even going back to what you said, man. What kept you is community, and it sounds like that's what you really honed in on. And I
Yeah,
can tell you right now, we've been listening to a lot of projects, man. If you're leading with that, that is more than half of the game. You
yeah,
know what I mean? If you can bring community and give people a reason to be there, man, that you've solved the hardest problem. And you said that already. You learned that in music, right?
sure,
It's
of course.
nature. It's the nature of the business. So it's
yeah.
awesome.
Thank you. Yeah,
Absolutely.
I mean, again, everybody, it's the same same strategy, different
Yep.
mechanisms in a sense.
Yep.
So,
Yeah,
and
You got it.
it's just a learning process.
yeah,
I'm not coming into this perfect with a plan and saying it's 100% working, but I know where I come from, and I know where Snack comes from, and I know where our team comes from, and I know
Yeah.
the values we all love,
yeah,
and that we're built on. So I'd bank on us.
yeah,
I'd feel comfortable knowing that. Thank God that we're fucking doing this, because I being a part of that, because I want to be a part of that, and that's what
Love
I
it.
would want to be a part of if in the beginning, if I when I came into this space. So
I
Absolutely.
love
but
it,
That's
yeah,
man.
awesome.
and
So
definitely what you said, Maddie, there's that bite-sizable, digestible content will be there,
yeah,
and we're
Perfect.
so thank you for putting that out there, because I
And
forgot.
let us know how we can help, man.
yeah.
We
Of
let
course,
us know how we can help. If we can help get that out there, we'd love to.
So we'll
surely.
end it with we got one last question that we didn't tell you about. It's a softball.
Screw
It's
you.
not it's not too hard, so don't worry about it. And then after that, Maddie will say his closing comments, I'll say mine, and we'll call it a day. How about that?
Surely.
All right. So our last question is: you've been in hundreds of spaces. You literally just talked about your journey and community. We'd love feedback, thoughts on your time on midlife crisis compared to other things that are happening in Web3.
Okay, I think that's an easy one. You guys are fucking awesome. I appreciate you for taking the time to to have a prep conversation, to have another prep conversation. What up, Kitty? To make it really feel comfortable for me, and if Snack were here too, for him as well, to know that we're in good hands. Nobody's coming at us. Nobody's trying to figure out, try to find the FUD and shit, but more so to get to know who we are and why. Ask us the questions that are sure hard, and also for the story for people to understand, because when people invest in a project and they want to get involved in the community, they deserve to know where the founders come from, where the team comes from, and you all have provided the production value, first of all, where I come from. I love that. And also the easy nature, and you guys are experienced as hell in doing this, I could tell. So it made me feel very comfortable and happy that I'm for first one of the times that I'm not the only one who has a long story, because I know Mikey, we were talking about that before. So
Oh
that's
man, we talk for hours, and that means the world to us, man. That's exactly really what we're going for on our podcast, and we just are totally fascinated by peeling back the layers of the onion, man, and hearing your story. It's what keeps us going. So, Maddie, closing words for you. I'll follow up, and we'll call it a day.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So, I mean, at the core of it, Mike and I do this because we're interested in people, right? And, our mission is to rekindle that lost art of human connection. And even though we're not Web3 experts per se, we're not devs, we're not doing any coding in the background or whatnot, we know this. There's an audience out there that is interested in people and not just projects. And I know that if when we were in the heyday, everything was wild, man. You're right, it was fast. How do you distinguish one project from another? And I knew that if I could have a sit down like this with every project founder back in that moment, it would have been much easier to know where to invest my time, energy, and dollars. And I was like, man, we can provide that. And so I really appreciate you taking the time. And I really appreciate you spending most of that time on who you are as a person, because the project can be amazing, man. But we've heard a lot of amazing project pitches in the last, I mean, 5 years of Web3 or whatnot you want to say, but really in the last couple of years, right? It's interesting people that seem to be the ones that keep these projects going. Interesting people who cultivate the communities, who understand what they're trying to achieve. And I think people recognize that. And so we try to create a venue for it. And man, you took us through a journey. This was wild. I mean, your story was one of the more unique ones, that's for sure.
awesome.
I mean, just being a musician and from the metal bands, and I mean, getting into electronic music and the people you've gotten to meet along your path, the way you've taken time to self-reflect and grow as a person and be willing to change with the currents says a lot about you. And that means as a founder for this project, because we know that about you, it gives me a lot more confidence that what you're going to be doing with this project is what you've done in all the other ventures you've had, which was essentially pursue it to the utmost, right? You give 110% no matter what you're doing. And that speaks volumes. So yeah, man, at the end of the day, I love getting a chance to hear this story. I cannot wait to follow your project. Here's what I do believe. Mikey and I love making friends live right here on, when we do this show. I am all about, as we're, as the future grows and we're all just kind of sitting back. I would very much like to go around Epcot and let's hit around the world.
Hell
And
yeah.
we can end in Mexico with some margaritas and make it happen. So that's
I'll
that's
be
that's what I think,
I'll,
man. It's gonna be real.
I'll be there in August, so I'm gonna hold you to that, man.
All right. I love
Oh,
it. I
there
love
you
it.
go, brother. Yeah, man. And adding on to what Maddie said, a couple of things stood out to me. One, just the intimate detail you went into your background. I appreciate that. You talk about being vulnerable. It takes courage. It takes all of those things to be able to share that amount of information. Fortunately, it was very interesting, so it was very easy to listen to as well. Um, Two, like Maddie said, beginning of a friendship. And then three, I think when we cut some of this information up, it's you're continue to with the educational and the tangible moments that you had a lot of tangible moments through that conversation for people to act on. And if you keep that at the center of what you do, I think you're gonna have a good opportunity to grow. And like Maddie said towards the end too, just like thank you for the time. We know time's number one valuable, but we just built a friendship live through a podcast, and I cannot wait to win and grow together, man. That's what we ultimately want to do, because we know that will drive to maybe that one number one YouTube hit eventually in the future, or us doing a joint collab on something amazing. So I think that'll happen as long as we all continue to do what we're doing.
Hell yeah, man. Thank you. That's some good shit. You guys are
Awesome.
OG.
And with that being
You got
said,
Thanks,
people,
man.
Midlife Crisis is out. That was an amazing conversation. We will be back next week. Can't wait to hear and see you all on socials. Mikey G, Midlife Crew, and SGAR are out.